Sylvester Stallone had a great year at the box office in the year 1985. He had Rocky IV in November of that year, which was a huge hit. But the film that he did earlier that year, which was also a huge hit, is the one I'm going to talk about today. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to my channel. And since I did Rambo Last Blood and Rambo, I figured I did First Blood back in November. Last night I'm like, I'm going to watch Rambo First Blood Part 2. That's the film we're going to talk about today. I'm going to do all the Rambos. I'm going to do a ranking video. I figure, what the heck? I like these films. I've always liked them. So let's get into this one a little bit. This one came out May 22nd of 1985. And like I said in the intro, later that year, Stallone had Rocky IV. So he had a great year in 1985. Two huge hits of movies. This one's rated R, hour and 36 minutes long, had a budget of somewhere between 25 and 44. I know it's a big difference, but one website says 25, one website says 44, so I'm just going to give you a range between 25 and 44 million. When released that year, it made 150 in the US and 300 total worldwide. It was a huge success, and it made a lot more money than First Blood did when it came out. For this film to direct it, we got George P. Cosmatos directed this film, and as we all know, Stallone went on to work with him again in Cobra. And George P. Cosmatos directed Tombstone. I know there's rumors out there. I've talked about them in other videos, but yes, George P. Cosmatos directed this film. Now, on the screenplay, Stallone wrote the screenplay, but he also had help from James Cameron. From everything I've read, James Cameron did the first draft of the script. Now, originally, James Cameron wrote in a sidekick for Rambo, like a techie kind of guy. And originally, they were going to go with John Travolta to play that role, but Stallone nixed that. He didn't feel like Rambo needed a sidekick like that, so he got rid of that. And Cameron says that he wrote most of the action sequences. Stallone, there's a little back and forth on that. Stallone says he wrote into politics, but he changed some other things around. He got rid of the sidekick and whatnot. Whatever. But Cameron was involved with Rambo First Blood Part 2. And in this film, we have Sylvester Stallone as our title character, John Rambo. Richard Crenna was back as Colonel Troutman. We got Charles Napier in here as Murdoch, and he plays a terrific bureaucratic scumbag. Steven Berkoff, coming off of the success of Beverly Hills Cop, is in here as a Russian Lieutenant Potovsky. We got Julia Nixon in here as Co. She's the woman that's trained military woman that just Rambo meets up with once he gets to Vietnam. And we got Martin Coven here coming off of Karate Kid. He's a small role as a mercenary helicopter pilot that flies Rambo into Vietnam and then is sent to go get him out. And then they we'll get into that, all that stuff. Anyway, this movie picks up. We see John Rambo in a prison camp doing working prison camp. He's breaking rocks with a sledgehammer. And Colonel Troutman shows up and offers him an opportunity to get out of there. What the plan is for him to go into Vietnam and find out where the POWs are. Because at that time, especially in American history, there was still a lot of questions. There was about 2,500 men missing from the war that they didn't know were dead or if they had them in prison camps in Vietnam. So the plan is for Rambo, if he said yes, to go into Vietnam and find out if there's POWs still there. So Rambo accepts and they go to Thailand. And this is where we meet Murdoch. And Murdoch lays out their plan for him to go in and take pictures only, not to engage the enemy. So if there are POWs there, the plan is for Colonel Troutman to go in with a strike force to get the POWs out. That is the plan. Rambo doesn't trust Murdoch for good reason because he comes off as a bureaucratic scumbag. And as we all know, he lies to Rambo. If you watch the film, he lies to Rambo. Rambo knows it because he tells Troutman when he gets on the plane to go into Vietnam, "You're the only one I trust. You're the only one I trust." And he goes in, and as we all know, he meets up with Co, and he goes and they find POWs at this prison camp. And Rambo goes in, kills a couple guards, and gets one of the prisoners out. And he signals for them to pick him up at the extraction point. And when Murdoch finds out he has a POW with him, he tells him to leave him there and leave. And this pisses Troutman off, and Rambo's obviously pissed off, and he gets captured. By this point, the Russians are involved. They come into this prison camp. And Rambo is tortured by the Russians because they want information off of him. And as we all know, he makes the call to Murdoch saying, "Murdoch, I'm coming to get you." And he kicks the Russian's ass and escapes. And then from there on out, the movie is just one long action scene after action scene until the end of the film. And this is where we're introduced to exploding arrow tips. which look awesome. When I was a kid, I watched this movie over and over and over again. My dad had this recorded off of HBO on a VHS tape, and I wore that thing the hell out. I watched this constantly. I loved this film when I was a kid. It has all the action. This is a fast-paced movie. Yes, the first half hour is mostly set up, but after that, it's pretty much action scene after action scene. And they turned Rambo kind of in this film into a superhero. Yes, he is beat up and he's tortured, but for the most part, nobody can seem to hit him with a bullet. And he seems to be indestructible. But I loved it as a kid. I still enjoyed it as an adult, no doubt. But I can see the flaws in this film now compared to when I was younger. But getting back in the film, at the end, Rambo rescues the POWs and flies back to the airfield, confronts Murdoch and tells him there's other POWs out there. He better find them or I'm going to find you. And he has one last interaction with Troutman, and Rambo walks off into the sunset. And in part 3, we meet him. And I'm going to do part 3. Tonight I'm going to watch part 3, so I'll review for part 3 tomorrow. Then I'm going to do a ranking video on Thursday of my favorite Rambo films, which I think I played my hand on some of those where I ranked them. This movie definitely amps up the action compared to the first one. The First Blood is more of a character study. It's more of a drama with action elements in it. And it's a shame Stallone didn't get nominated for an Oscar for that role. He's fantastic in First Blood. It's a fantastic film. Stallone's great here. Stallone always gives his all, even in movies that aren't as good around him. Now, this movie, everybody's good. All the actors do really great work. Steven Berkoff's great. He's chewing the shit out of the scenery as this Russian lieutenant, but he's great in it. Coming off of Beverly Hills Cop, he kind of sticks out like, oh, that's the guy from Beverly Hills Cop. Charles Napier's great as a bureaucratic scumbag, and Richard Crenna, it's nice to see him as Troutman. Everybody does great. The action's filmed nicely. It's exciting. It's well choreographed, and the explosions are spectacular, even though some of it does not make a whole lot of sense. Again, like I said, they jacked up the action to 11 in this film compared to the first film. And they take it a little bit over the top, for sure. But it's all played dead serious, too. So it's not like tongue-in-cheek at all. It's dead serious. Now, is this movie as good as First Blood? No. And do I love it as much as I did when I was a kid? No. I still enjoy this film. It's a fun action film to sit down and watch and have a good time with. I think Rambo, the 4th chapter, is better than this. And I'm even going to go out on a limb. Well, we'll see what my ranking says on Thursday. I'm not going to get into that. I would give this film a 7.5 out of 10. I think on a pure action level, it's a freaking good time. It's just some of the story elements, some of the over-the-topness doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and they kind of turn Rambo into an action, almost like a superhero. There was a Rambo cartoon after this, and that it got a little ridiculous. I get it; this movie was a huge hit, and they were capitalizing on that. There was children toys based on this film. It got crazy. This was a huge hit. Reagan used to reference this film in speeches. It was a huge cultural event back then, and then he had Rocky IV later that year, which was again a big cultural event and a huge hit. I love Rocky IV too, even though it's all its cheesiness. And supposedly we're gonna get a director's cut of Rocky IV, which I'm on board for. I love that film, so any director's cut Stallone's gonna release, I'm on board for that. But yeah, I give it 7.5 out of 10 for Rambo: First Blood Part 2. What are your thoughts on this movie? Let a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this film. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this video. I'd greatly appreciate that. I will be back soon with a Rambo 3 review tomorrow, most likely in the evening, and I'll do a Rambo ranking video on Thursday. You all take care of yourselves, and I will be back soon. Thanks. Bye.